Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Chief Judge John Phillips of the 19th Judicial Circuit. Welcome to Your Courthouse at Work, where judges tell the story of how justice is administered in our county. In this episode, we are featuring our courthouse's participation in an extraordinary nationwide project to preserve the stories of our veterans, called the Veterans History Project. I think you're going to be very proud when you learn that the entire courthouse community came together, and that includes the judges and the court reporters and the attorneys and people in government. We did this on Veterans Day and worked to make sure that the stories of our military heroes are not forgotten. In legal updates, you're going to hear from Judge Tom Shippers and Judge Veronica O'Malley, and they're going to talk about the judges that hear cases out in our branch courts. You're going to meet those judges, and you're going to learn about the important work that they do. And finally, my animal law feature in this episode is about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's dogs. We're going to have some surprise guests that are going to tell you a little bit about how these canine companions really make life a little bit easier, and even bigger surprise about how they're going to become involved in our courthouse. So please stay tuned.
Growing up in the 1950s, it was common knowledge that almost everyone had either served in World War II in the armed forces or had supported the war effort back home. For every person who served in uniform in the front lines, there were probably 15 or 20 people working behind them to provide the weapons, the ammunition, the equipment, the training, the intelligence, and other support that they needed to succeed. I learned from my parents and grandparents that the people back home all supported the war effort in various ways. They either worked in defense plants, or they raised money for war bonds, or volunteered for civil defense duty. Everyone knew about food and gas rationing, the wheatless and meatless days, and even children collected scrap iron and started victory gardens to support the war effort. Almost every house on the block had a Blue Star pennant hanging in the window, signifying that a member of the family was serving in the armed forces. Many houses had a Gold Star pennant, indicating that a member of the family had given their life for their country. Today we have many official memorials commemorating the service of our armed forces in time of war, but these memorials do not tell the personal stories of hardship, of sacrifice, and of heroism. And as the years pass, the people who experience these things firsthand pass on. With their passing, we as a society have less knowledge and understanding and appreciation of what they went through. We may not remember the great sacrifices made by our fellow citizens in time of war. The Veterans History Project, created by Congress in 2000, tries to capture the unique and personal firsthand stories of our citizens who served and sacrificed during wartime, so that current and future generations understand the terrible price of war and appreciate what our fellow citizens did in the service of our country. Through the efforts of volunteers, it collects, preserves, and makes accessible the personal accounts of American war veterans, as well as the accounts of civilians who were actively involved in the war effort. Over the past 3 years, the Lake County Veterans History Project has interviewed over 70 war veterans on Veterans Day here at the Lake County Courthouse. By telling their personal stories, these veterans continue to serve our country by educating future generations of Americans.
This is our third annual Veterans History Project participation at the courthouse. First and foremost, I express the appreciation and gratitude of everyone who gather here to honor the sacrifices each veteran has made in his or her service to our country. We salute you, we thank you, and you honor us by your very presence here with us today. It is so fitting that we are here in the seat of county government of Lake County and at its courthouse, where every day we honor that document that you preserved for us by your service and what you accomplished, and that is those freedoms that are guaranteed by that Constitution that we all honor every day.
point of the stories that you and I have to tell are our past. Someone once said, don't know where you're going until you know where you've been. We can tell them that. We can tell our children and our grandchildren where we've been, why we are the way we are, who we are as a result of our upbringing.
The Veterans History Project has been very successful and well received, not only because of the participation of the veterans, but also because of the many community volunteers that donated their time, money, and effort to the project. A local farmer donated much of the food, and court reporters from Lake County and the surrounding counties donated their time to transcribe the interviews of these brave veterans. There were local attorneys, prosecutors, and public defenders that came in on a court holiday to interview the veterans. The Lake County Bar Association and its members, the Marine Corps League, along with the Young Marines, and a host of private citizens all worked together to ensure that this day was both successful and enjoyable. It is truly a remarkable feat that the community comes together like this on an annual basis to ensure that these veterans get the recognition they so richly deserve, and that their stories are not forgotten. Finally, each veteran received a challenge coin commemorating his participation in this historic event.
This past Veterans Day in Lake County, a total of 32 veterans were interviewed. All the services were represented: Army, Army Air Corps, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and even a civilian worker at Great Lakes Naval Hospital. There were veterans of World War II, Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Several saw significant combat. Several were injured in battle. Many medals were received, including the Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Distinguished Flying Cross, Combat Infantry Badge, and the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry. Most of the veterans that were interviewed were enlisted. Only a handful of officer veterans were present. There were both male and female veterans. Many were Army and Marine Corps infantry veterans, but also represented were sailors aboard ship, field artillery, Seabees, combat divers, Army combat nurses, military police, motor transport, helicopter pilots, bomber pilots and aircrew over Europe and Japan. A female civilian social worker who aided several wounded service members at Great Lakes Naval Hospital was also interviewed. Their personal stories are a snapshot of the country's experiences over much of the 20th century. From those who lived through the Great Depression or were part of the baby boom, when their country called, they responded. Veterans related, among many other things, the attack on Pearl Harbor, convoy duty in the Atlantic, air battle over Europe, the land battle for Europe, including Normandy, Battle of the Bulge, accompanying Patton across the continent, meeting Russian troops at the Elbe River, the defense of Midway Island, island hopping in the South Pacific, the naval battle at Leyte Gulf, surviving the sinking of the aircraft carrier USS Princeton, fighting in the Philippines, Okinawa, service on the Aleutian Islands, the amphibious landing in Korea at Incheon, the survival of the Red Chinese attack in the Chosin Reservoir, Da Nang, the Tet Offensive, and Khe Sanh. Not only are their stories their personal experiences, they are key parts of the history of our country and of our armed forces. They did their duty with honor and humility. It was our privilege to meet them and their families and to record their contributions to our country.
As a younger person, I used to hang out at the water purifying plant in the town. And I saw these Navy magazines, and I picked one up, and I saw these sailors and ships, and I got the idea much earlier. And I knew I was going to go in the Navy. Well, in those days, you must remember, it was the Depression was on. And it was really some place to sleep, some place to eat, with pay. You couldn't beat that.
The reason I joined the Army was I'd rather see the war over there than here. And I worried about the family.
February 19th, my birthday, started what they called in Europe the big week. And it wasn't to celebrate my birthday. They were going, the major maximum effort, that means every plane that is flyable is going to go. Maximum effort missions every day.
So there we were. We were exposed. The ships were open. Most of the ships were getting ready for inspection the Monday morning. No watertight integrity. I heard the alarm. I didn't pay any attention to it. I took my time because it was just another drill to me. So I got out of my bunk, went up there, went all the way back. And when I got to top side, they were like bees. I could see the pilot just as plain as I'm looking at you, coming right up the channel. I was on the flying bridge. I was up here. The plane was down. I could see the expression on his face.
We were captured by what they call the Volkssturm. Our first prison camp was in East Prussia on the Baltic Ocean. We asked him why in the hell. It took us forever in this boxcar. No bathroom, no water. We got a chunk of bread like that thick every other day. Anybody that was a prisoner in Germany that was moved at all lost at least a third of their weight. But when I got to Oxford, England, to a hospital, I weighed 98 pounds.
Of course, I didn't mention the site of Buchenwald. That was one of the camps where the Germans got rid of the Jewish population. They had bodies all over the place, just piled up like it was a pile of coal. But you're going to find most of the guys, they won't talk about the war. And that's the way I was for over 50 years.
We buried an old Navy veteran today. Unlike the poem, the USS Oklahoma veteran, not all combat-killed Americans are buried where family can go to visit and remember. No one can visit Donald Robert McLeod, but he is not forgotten. If money spends in heaven, someday Chief Petty Officer Joseph Triolo, U.S. Navy retired, will repay his friend $2.
Yeah.
Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep.
Hello, I'm Judge Tom Shippers.
And I'm Judge Veronica O'Malley.
And we're here today to talk to you about the branch courts here in Lake County. You know, nearly everyone at one time or another has found themselves in a branch courthouse, whether they're dealing with a traffic ticket or even accompanying a friend or a family member who's in need of some moral support. Right here in Lake County, we have 3 branch courts, and they're located in Park City, Mundelein, and Round Lake Beach. And they are very busy courthouses indeed, Judge O'Malley.
All 3 branch courts deal with traffic citations, and chances are, if you get a traffic ticket in Lake County, the case will be assigned to one of the branch courts. I recently had the opportunity to interview judges who preside over these types of cases in order to find out a little bit about what goes on in branch court. I'm here at the Park City Branch Court with 2 of our judges who hear traffic cases, Judge Chris Lombardo and Judge Dan Jessica. Judge Lombardo, what should one expect when they arrive in traffic court?
Well, first they should expect that they're going to go through security, which means they're going to pass through a magnetometer, much like you would see at the airport. So please leave any unnecessary items in the courthouse or from the courthouse in your vehicle. Then they'll come in, they'll check in with our clerk. They'll tell them their name and they will pull the file, and then the judge will call their case when he's ready.
So in what order are cases called?
Well, we try to call the cases that we think will be resolved faster first. So if someone's pleading guilty, or if someone wants to hire an attorney and come back a month or so in the future with an attorney, we'll call those cases first, and then we'll hold the trials till the end of the call because they tend to take more time.
What happens when somebody pleads guilty?
The judge will look at their driving record, look at their criminal history, and make an appropriate sentence, which could include court supervision, which may be a fine, some community service, and it may include traffic school.
All right, you're probably asked this every day, but what exactly is court supervision?
Well, it's important. It's a disposition of their case where they will not have a conviction on their record, provided they pay the fine, they do the traffic school, they do the things that the court requires of them, and do those things within the right time. If they do those things, it would not be a conviction on their record.
So what if a person doesn't want to plead guilty and demands a trial instead?
Sure.
What happens?
Everyone's entitled to a trial if they want one. So if they were to fill out the blue sheet, the blue copy on the back of the ticket that the officer gives them and request a trial, then the first date that the case is set before the court would be their trial date. Alternatively, if they come to court and decide, even though they didn't fill out the blue form, that they want a trial, then the court would give them a trial date probably about a month out.
How are trials conducted in branch court?
Well, we begin the trials at the end of the court call. The prosecutor does have the burden of proving the motorist committed the infraction, so he will go first by calling his witnesses, typically a police officer or maybe even another motorist. When he rests, the individual has the opportunity to tell me what happened or even call witnesses if they wish. Obviously, once all of the evidence is heard, I'll make a decision.
So what are some of the more serious traffic type offenses that you hear out in branch court?
Well, we do hear offenses that are jailable. So for instance, we do hear speeding tickets over 26 miles an hour. Those are jailable offenses under Illinois law. We also hear cases involving suspended or revoked driver's license. Those are also jailable offenses under Illinois law.
Are traffic-related offenses the only type of case that you hear in traffic court?
Actually, we hear a wide variety of cases. We hear cases involving retail theft, battery, many ordinance violations. We hear cases involving minors who are accused of consuming or possessing alcohol. We have dog bite cases. We have a lot of cases that we hear. In fact, our typical court call can have as many as 800 cases in a day.
Thank you, Judge Lombardo and Judge Jessica, for your overview of traffic court. Since my interview with the branch court judges, I've learned that in the year 2013 alone, there were over 121,000 new traffic cases filed and over 5,900 new ordinance cases filed in the 3 branch courts combined.
Well, thanks for that information, Judge O'Malley. You know, I too had the opportunity to interview Judge Nancy Waits. Judge Waits is in the Park City Branch Court. She presides over a variety of civil cases, including probate matters and arbitration cases. These cases used to be heard here in the main courthouse in Waukegan, but because of space constraints, they were moved out to Park City several years ago. Now, let's go to my interview with Judge Waits and see just what kind of cases she hears out in Park City. Hello, everybody. We are here at the Park City Courthouse, and I have with me Judge Nancy Waits.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. We are here to talk to you about the calls that Judge Waits does out here, the arbitration and the probate calls. Judge Waits, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen what a probate case is and what kind of probate cases you deal with?
Well, there are two types of probate cases that we deal with. One is administering decedent's estates, and the other are guardianships.
When you say administering a decedent's estate, could you explain to the folks what that is?
It means a person has died and that their property needs to be distributed among their relatives or their friends. That can be a will, or it can be a person who has died without a will.
And when you talk about guardianships, what kind of guardianships do you deal with, and what does that entail?
Well, there are two types of guardianships. One is an adult guardianship, which means mom or dad or brother or sister has become ill or unable to take care of themselves and their property, and the other is a minor's estate. So that is usually a grandma or a family member coming in and asking for guardianship of a minor child.
Now, do individuals who represent themselves come into this courtroom for the guardianship issues?
Yes, there are two types of guardianships, and pro se litigants come in all the time, people representing themselves. So they're coming to my courthouse, to me, and asking me to give them guardianship over an adult or a minor.
When somebody believes that they need a guardianship and they're going to be representing themselves, is there anything that the courthouse does to help them, to assist them in navigating through the system?
Well, we have a really good program that helps litigants who are seeking the guardianship of a minor child. Every Friday, we have the Guardianship Help Desk. It's located out in my hallway, and I have volunteer lawyers and volunteer paralegals who come every week, very faithful folks, and they will help people complete the paperwork and lead them through the process, ultimately getting them a court date and bringing them into court.
So if somebody's interested in opening one of these estates, they could just come into here, Park City, on a Friday, and people will help them through the process.
Any Friday morning from 9 to 11.
Okay. And then besides probate cases, you also deal with what are called arbitration cases.
Right. Those are civil cases with limits beginning at $10,000 and topping off at $50,000.
Under $10,000 are the small claims?
Those are small claims cases, yes.
So anybody who's claiming between $10,000 and $50,000, they would have their case here?
They'd come here and I would set their case for arbitration. The arbitration cases, those cases that are between $10,000 and $50,000, are scheduled in my courtroom so that I can schedule them for arbitration, which takes place in our arbitration center on Washington Street in downtown Waukegan.
Do you have pro se litigants that come in for the arbitration cases also?
You know, we do, but we have fewer that come in for those cases, particularly if it's a car accident or something where they might be covered by insurance.
Well, thank you, Judge Waits, for telling us what you do out here in Park City with the probate and the arbitration calls.
Thanks for coming out and seeing us.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Judge Waits. Like the traffic court, Judge Waits also presides over very busy calls out in Park City. Currently, there are almost 4,000 pending probate cases and almost 600 pending arbitration cases in Park City alone. And remember, folks, if you're considering filing a probate estate or a guardianship matter on your own, remember Judge Waits' advice to visit the help desk in Park City on Friday mornings. You can find the address at the Lake County Court's website. And I'm Judge Tom Shippers.
And I'm Judge Veronica O'Malley, reporting on Legal Updates.
Hello again, everyone. As promised, we're back here in the courthouse. And I am just so very pleased and blessed today to have some very special guests here. My guests in this episode are the State's Attorney of Lake County, Mike Nierheim. Mike, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And right in the middle is Tina Russ and a beautiful girl that she brought with her, Cammie. Thank you very much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about this girl you brought with you today?
This girl has been a therapy dog for 9 years. She's 11 years old, which is pretty remarkable for a German Shepherd in the first place. I got her from a breeder who was intending to use her for a breeding dog. But she had a problem, so they spayed her, and she became an extra dog, and that's, long story shortened, I got her, and I did not think that I was going to have a therapy dog, but her calmness is a thing that impressed me right off the bat. She's, as you see, she's very relaxed. She's very attentive. So the calmness of this dog made me think that maybe she'd be really great as a therapy dog.
You said the word, Tina, therapy dog. What do you mean by therapy dog?
A therapy dog, to become a therapy dog, well, there's a difference between a therapy dog and a service dog. And one of the primary ways I could tell you the difference is a therapy dog like Cammie often visits many different venues, whereas a service dog can be devoted to one individual. Say a person has a disability or PTSD. There are a lot of different reasons people need a service dog devoted to that one person. And the service dog would be trained to help that individual. So a therapy dog can be involved in many different kinds of activities that are dog-assisted activities. For example, Cammie is a member of the Canine Reading Buddies, and it's a literacy program for children. They come to the libraries and they read to Cammie. And also we visit the VA, the James A. Lovell Federal Health Care Center, and a couple of their facilities there, and they love her a lot.
Mike, Tina mentioned the difference between several types of dogs. You and I had a great experience pretty recently. I wonder if you'd tell us about that experience.
So we went to a conference where the focus of this conference was on facility dogs, and we both were able to learn a lot about that process and how those dogs work. And prior to going, we had the idea of trying to elicit a dog for our courthouse, because I think there's certainly a lot of need for that, and I can think of several different programs immediately that I think we could certainly use a facility dog in Lake County. And if we're successful, and I'd say that we're already underway in trying to have such a program here, we'll be the first such county in the state to have a facility dog. One area that I know we could use a facility dog would be at our Children's Advocacy Center. That is a facility that sadly we specialize in the prosecution and the investigation of sexual and physical abuse of children. And it's sad that there's so much of that in Lake County that we actually have a whole separate facility and a team of prosecutors and investigators that handle those cases. And we do over 600 cases a year that come into that facility. But the nice thing is that facility is designed to make the whole process as comfortable as possible on the kids that come in, because as you can imagine, when they come into that facility, they're really going through the second worst day of their life, where they're coming in and they're speaking to complete strangers about something awful that had happened, and oftentimes they're being brought in with a family member. So you can imagine it's a very traumatic experience just coming in. So we've done a lot to try to make the facility more comfortable for the children. All the people that work there are handpicked and they're professionals. They're very highly trained in working with children. But when I heard about the facility dog program and talked to other prosecutors around the country that have used facility dogs, I thought, what a great way to help not only the children that come into the center, but their families and really my staff, because these folks every day are hearing the worst of the worst and some awful cases involving children. And what I've been told from other prosecutors that have had such programs, that not only is it, these dogs are great benefit to the children and helping them just feel more comfortable in the process, helping them, open up, but the added benefit has been it's really reduced the stress in the environment on behalf of the employees that are in the facility. So I know we could certainly use a dog at our Advocacy Center. We, of course, have so many great programs here in Lake County, like our Veterans Court program. I know a dog would be very useful there. Our domestic violence unit, sadly, we have a lot of cases here where we have family members of murder victims that are here when there's a trial going on, and for a lot of obvious reasons, that can be a very stressful and traumatic experience. So I know there's a lot of areas where we could use these dogs, because as you can see, they just help kind of reduce the stress level of any environment, and anything we can do to help people get through this process a little easier, I think it's certainly worthwhile.
Mike, do you see the project going forward pretty quickly with respect to a facility dog here?
I think so. I know we're definitely involved and we're invested in this, and we can certainly see the need and the benefit. And one of the processes is once you have the dog, you need somebody in the office that's going to be the caretaker for the dog. So I put it out to my office and just asked for volunteers. And you're really asking for a lot. You're asking for somebody to basically have a dog that they're going to take home and care for. And I had way more people volunteer than we have dogs to fill those roles. So there's a lot of excitement in my office and a lot of buzz. And it's one of those programs where I don't think a lot of people know about it, but once you take the time and explain it to them, people immediately see the benefit. And it's something we're going to do here in Lake County.
Well, we're with you, because I know when our circuit judges talked about it, we were unanimous in 14 seconds. So this is something I sure hope is going to happen in quickly. Well, Tina, on behalf of all of us in the judiciary and in the 19th Judicial Circuit, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, to explain to us about therapy dogs, and particularly as to what you and Cammie do.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And Mike, as always, it's great to have your partnership here, this project as we go forward too. And I just don't know what to say other than I wish every day in the courthouse could be with companions like this as well. So from the 19th Judicial Circuit of Illinois, I'm Chief Judge John Phillips, thanking you for being with us.